My booking number is 4.
Wow, what a nightmare cruise scenario. Look, big mistake can equal missed cruise. I don't want that for any of you guys. I'm going to tell you exactly what the story of that video is, but I'm also going to give you 5 ways not to miss your cruise. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I am your cruise guru. Happy to walk you through that cruise life. And today we're going to hit a very important topic. We're going to talk about ways not to miss your cruise ship. Let's kick it off with number 1. Travel documentation is the most important thing to think about pre-cruise. Do you know what travel documentation is required for your travel? Do you know what it takes to get on the cruise ship? Do you know what it takes to get into any of the countries that you are traveling into? Fortunately, if you're traveling from the US to the Caribbean, which is one of the most popular cruise destinations, you don't need a lot of extra documentation. You just need your passport to get on the cruise ship, or a birth certificate and a state ID in most cases. But other countries around the world may require more documentation, like a travel visa or some sort of documentation that allows you to be in the country that you are visiting. Super important. First thing that you want to do is figure out what travel documentation you need for your cruise, and then make sure that that travel documentation is up to date. There's all kinds of rules around passports. Does your passport have to be valid 6 months after you leave a place? Do you have to have a certain amount of blank pages in your passport to go to a place? All these different variables come into play, and if you don't pay close attention to those variables, well, you could be denied boarding on your cruise. And then the bonus tip is make sure that you have it on you. Get yourself a little bag or, a special pocket to carry your travel documentation. I've been in line more than once where people are fumbling around looking in their carry-on luggage. Heaven forbid they've left it in their checked-in luggage, not ready to show their documentation to the terminal worker or to the cruise port worker. And of course, it slows everybody else down, and it's a stressful situation for you. So let me say it again. Have the appropriate travel documentation. Make sure that it is up to date, and make sure that it is on you to ensure that you will have a easy start to your cruise vacation. A second way to make sure that you do not miss your cruise is to make sure that your cruise fare is paid prior to embarkation day. This seems like a no-brainer, but there have been several instances over the last year of people arriving to the cruise port only to find out that their cruise had been canceled because there was some sort of charge on their account that they did not know about. Sometimes a charge jumps on there when you're just looking at an excursion. There's a lot of stuff that could happen. And so a good rule of thumb is that prior to your cruise, check and recheck to make sure that you do not have an outstanding balance with the cruise line, an outstanding balance that could cancel your cruise, and you don't even find out about it until you show up for your cruise. I wouldn't even think that that could happen, but we've had stories of it happening. So make sure you check pre-cruise. The number 3 way to make sure that you do not miss your cruise is to make sure you know what's on the prohibited item list for the cruise line that you are cruising on. Several examples of this over the past year where people show up at the cruise terminal and they've got something with their luggage that is prohibited. And while oftentimes the prohibited item may just be confiscated, thrown away, held until the end of the cruise, there has been a few of these prohibited items that have resulted in people not being able to go on their cruise, and then beyond that, being banned from the cruise line that they tried to take the prohibited items on. There's a huge crackdown right now on controlled substances, particularly around CBD, around cannabis. None of these things are allowed on the major cruise lines, even though they may be legal where you live. Just because it's legal where you live does not mean it's legal at the cruise port, doesn't mean that it's legal at the countries that you're visiting. You have to check the prohibited item list for your cruise to make sure that you do not get in trouble for bringing something, trouble to the point where you are not allowed to cruise. It's happening, and it's a cautionary tale. Make sure you check that prohibited item list. Now, the 4th way to not miss your cruise is to make sure that you're not too pregnant. That's right, not too pregnant. I only bring it up because it has happened before. Most of the cruise lines have a cutoff for pregnancy, and that cutoff is 24 weeks or more. I think the cruise lines, like most of us, would rather you have your baby at home than on a cruise prematurely. And I'm not sure how they arrived at the 24-week number, but it's a pretty set standard in the industry. If you are entering your 24th week, or if you've exceeded your 24th week of pregnancy, then you will not be allowed to cruise. You may have booked a cruise a couple years ago and now you found out that you're pregnant. I would say as soon as you find out that you're pregnant, if you're going to exceed that 24 weeks at the time of your cruise, start working with the cruise line to make sure that they can, accommodate you for the need to cancel. That way you're not losing out on money, and then heaven forbid, don't go to the cruise port 25 weeks pregnant and all of a sudden get denied boarding on your cruise. That certainly happened, and definitely if you are with child, that's a level of stress you probably do not want to encounter. Now, let me roll the video from the intro again, and we'll break down exactly what happened there. Before we get there, though, let me quickly invite you to subscribe if you like staying up to date with everything that's going on in cruising. Well, we're here for you. Please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. Well, let's watch it again. Man, the wailing of that lady. So the person that took the video is not the lady that's crying by the suitcase. In a subsequent video, she said she did not know who was crying by the suitcase. But the person who took the video, her name is Alexis B on TikTok. This is a video that's garnered well over 22 million views. Alexis B shares her story and why she missed this cruise ship by 20 minutes. And it's a mistake that she made. She's happy to admit her mistake. It's something that we can all learn from. It's going to be the 5th way to not miss your cruise. But essentially, she got to the cruise terminal after final call for embarkation. And I'm not sure that everybody understands that they close the door for embarkation before the cruise ship actually leaves, because they have to reconcile the manifest. They have to do things before the cruise ship can leave the port. And usually there's a gap, a window of a couple hours. So in this particular case, boarding had ended at 2 p.m. and it didn't seem like the cruise ship left until 4 p.m. And so you may say, well, if somebody gets there between the window of 2 and 4 p.m., shouldn't they let them on? No, it's almost like when they close the door on an airplane, close the door to boarding. Regardless of whether the plane is still there or not, you cannot now get onto the airplane. Same thing with a cruise ship, but the question is begged, why was Alexis 20 minutes late? Well, she was late because she chose to fly in on the same day of the cruise. The cruise was in California and she was in Arizona, just a short flight from Scottsdale, Arizona to LAX in California. But when she got to the airport that morning, her original flight had been delayed. And so she had to be put on a later flight to LAX. She got to LAX later than anticipated. She got to the cruise port later than anticipated, and the boarding process had already ended. And so the 5th way to make sure you do not miss your cruise is to travel into the cruise port the day prior to the cruise. Now you may say, well, this hour-and-a-half flight, it happens all the time from Scottsdale to LAX. Surely nothing will happen. Well, surely something did. And so there's many stories out there, people who have tried to travel in on the day of the cruise only to have some sort of snafu, car breakdown, traffic, delayed flight, a whole litany of things could happen to cause you to be delayed to the cruise port and therefore cause you to miss your cruise. Now, fortunately, Alexis is a smart traveler. She purchased travel insurance for situations just like this. And because her flight was delayed and it was not her fault, she was able to get a refund for her flight, a refund for her cruise. It's a really great example of why to have travel insurance. But she says it plainly herself. In the future, she will make sure that she travels to the cruise port the day before the cruise. There you go. Those are 5 ways to make sure you do not miss your cruise. But did you know there are 10 mistakes that first-time cruisers make? Yeah, check that out next. This is Tony for La Lido Loca. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed the show. And until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.